The Creative Collective. Collaboration, not competition.
So that's where it comes from, anyway.
Interesting. Just a side note, right at the beginning of this episode, I've got the same hoodie on as the last one we did.
Yeah.
It hasn't been washed, but it has been rotated with a couple of other hoodies.
So the thing is with hoodies and jumpers is that as long as you've got t-shirts rotating, it's not too bad, is it?
Nah.
Especially as I presume you bath or shower every day.
Well, about that. What's a bath?
What is a bath? Do you know? Here's a random fact for you. I haven't had a bath for about 9 years.
What you mean? You haven't gotten in a bath, or your house hasn't had a bath for not?
No. I've had showers for 9 years. I haven't had a bath. I've always had a bath in my house. I don't trust them.
What, like bathing in your own grime?
No, thank you.
But doesn't the soap kill all that?
Nah, you're riddled. You're riddled with your own dirt.
One thing I will say about baths, that I find it interesting after a bath to see how much grit is left in on the bath.
Yeah, exactly. And you're washing in that.
Where does it
make
come
it
from?
make sense?
Anyway,
welcome back, everybody.
TCC Snap episode 4.
Episode 4, yeah, and hopefully people can hear me better this time because my mic is working.
I've turned me up as well.
Okay, awesome.
Just because. And I think today we're going to talk about the one that I suggested in WhatsApp. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, let's do it.
It was to do with at what point do you know, or sorry, no, not what point do you know, but at what point should you start putting yourself out there as being ready in your business? So just as an example, we'll use voiceover as an example. Lots of the coaches and teachers and training schools for voiceover say, don't put yourself out there until someone who knows better than you tells you that you're ready, sort of thing.
Okay.
So once you've had loads of training, once they've said, yeah, you can do this, sort of thing. And I put myself out there before that because I needed the money, basically. I didn't have much coming in from other places, so I needed voiceover at the time as to be a revenue stream. That's not why I started voiceover. It wasn't because of the money. I wanted to try to see if I could do it because it sounded exciting and interesting and that sort of thing. So when is it? So for me, I thought it was okay to start then. I wish I'd have waited because I look back to my earlier stuff and think, ooh, nah. But when is it okay? Because you could just keep pushing it down the road and waiting and relying too much perhaps on other people to tell you that you're not ready already.
God, it's a good question. Well, the short answer is there's no correct answer, is there? Because everyone's going to be in a different spot in their lives. And I think that there's going to be some people that you look at and you think, oh, you shouldn't have. You probably need another 6 months, a year to upskill yourself. But then there's also people that you think, what are you doing? Like, you're good enough. So crack on. Yeah. Just going back to what you said though, and I'll reflect on my quote unquote journey too. But you said that you look back and you cringe basically. So potentially you weren't ready, but the commercial reasons kind of pushed you to it. The other way to look at that is it would be more sad if you listened back to your stuff years ago and you thought, oh, that was all right. Because the whole point is every year you should be getting better, shouldn't you? So, yeah. What do you think about
that? Yeah, so I'm going through a process at the minute of creating a new commercial demo reel. You're supposed to do it every couple of years. So my I last did it in 2022, and I thought at the time, oh yeah, this is good. And I listened back to that one and think, actually, no, I am much better now because I have training every month with a VO coach who is much more experienced than I am. So I'm always learning and always pushing forward into sort of new areas and techniques and things and styles and whatever. And then the other day I dug out my very first commercial reel from when I first started, and it took me so long to do it, months and months and months of each clip had hundreds of takes each trying to perfect it, sort of thing. And I listened back to it the other day, and it is so bad. Like,
Yeah.
in comparison to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm surprised that I got work from it.
And that leads me on to a perfect uh, sort of observation, because I feel exactly the same. Like when I'm looking back to the first people that hired me as a photographer, the work was so bad. Yet people, like not many people back in the day, but people still paid for it. So it's so weird, your perception of um well, I think it goes in a cycle, doesn't it? Because when you first start, you think, oh, your work's pretty good. And you're actually not surprised that people are paying for it because, oh, well, that's okay. That's good work. But then when you look back, you think, what are people thinking? But a question to sort of follow up to that is, I think I was having this chat the other day, actually. I think being naive about how hard running your own business is the best way to be. Because if I knew now what I did at the start, I'm not sure I would have started it. And it would have been a huge, huge mistake because I love my life now. But there's so much you don't know at the start. And if you did, you probably wouldn't start because there's so much to learn, isn't there? What do you think about that?
I think you're probably right on that one. Yeah, not knowing everything and not there is no way to know everything at the beginning. I don't
And
think.
if you do, you've left it too long anyway.
Yeah, and why? Because nothing. It doesn't all crop up at once. Everything that you need to do to run a business does not all happen right on the first day of starting that business. So, I didn't have to do my tax straight away. So I didn't learn about that until I needed to do it, for example. I didn't learn about anything to do with marketing to start with, or anything to do with websites, because I didn't need any of that, because right at the beginning, I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
To start with, I was just sort of training, but I did launch. I still think I launched too quickly.
Do you?
Yeah, but like I said,
Why?
I
Why?
needed to, just because I in my mind I wasn't good enough. But I think even though I wasn't good enough in my mind, I think I was probably, and the same with you, people hired you, so it means that you were better than other people, or they would have hired someone else. So I think you'll always be better than someone, but not better than everyone. And I think maybe you would get a bit sort of slack if you did think, I'm the best at this. There's no one in the world better than me at this.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Well, I always find that most of the times I've thought, and this doesn't happen very often, but when stuff's going well and you think, oh, I've cracked this business lark, and then whatever you believe in terms of the universe or coincidence or whatever, uh, yeah, it slaps you in the face. And it brings you down a couple of rungs, and you realize, oh, actually, I've kind of got to, every day you've pretty much got to start again to a certain extent. Isn't a bad thing, because it keeps you humble and keeps you grounded, doesn't it?
Have you got an example of that? Something that knocks you back, knocks you down a peg or two?
A peg or two. Well, I think this is more of a general point, but when things when jobs are coming in and you're not really having to market and you think, oh, this is quite nice, and then it suddenly goes quiet and there's tumbleweeds coming through your bank account, that's when it humbles you pretty quick that actually you can't take anything for granted, and you've got to have that amateur, and I say that in a positive way, the amateur attitude of doing it for the love and starting again and doing, putting in the reps basically.
Mm.
Do you know that amateur does mean for the love?
Does it?
Yeah. I always think amateur is sort of seen as quite a, it can be seen as quite a negative word actually. Oh, that's really amateurish, or you're a right amateur. But yeah, it means for the love. So I think it should be as a positive thing.
I had something this week where I've had some like business telephone stuff pick up for Christmas, people changing their hours and that sort of thing, or when they're going to reopen. And had a new lead, and I recorded stuff and said it to them. They were quite excited about this on hold thing, and they said, "Oh yeah, we've decided that we're not going to go down that route anymore. We're just not going to. We just don't want it anymore." I was like, "We'll pay you for your time," sort of thing. I was like, "Fair, I'm getting paid for it, and I did my thing, and it wasn't anything against me, but it was still, oh, all right, well, what next?" sort of
Okay.
thing. It was
Yeah.
still like a little bit of a knockback, despite, and you could still have other sort of successes on those days, but that one knockback will still be like, oh, well, why
Yeah.
don't they think I'm perfect?
Yeah. 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 How, and I think this speaks to how people deal with stuff like that, because I know in that position, even though you could have 9 shoots that go really well and you knock it out of the park and people are happy, you get that one bit of feedback that is not even a criticism, but not, quite negative potentially.
Mm.
You'll completely forget about all that stuff, and you'll be focused on that, that thing, and you'll question everything. Oh, maybe I'm shit, or they're not going to work with me anymore. And, are they a big client? Are they a small client? Oh, I might as well just pack up, all just from this tiny comment that doesn't really mean anything. It's not personal. And there may have even been reasons for that, for it going wrong. Yeah, it's a bit of a mental minefield, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Mm.
And how would you deal with it? How do you deal with a knockback like that?
How do you, yeah, that's a good question.
And it wasn't even a knockback. It was just, oh, we've decided we don't really want it anymore. Not that they don't necessarily need it or they didn't think it was good, but they just didn't want that. It was on hold stuff for their phone. They didn't want to have on hold stuff in the end. Because I think I just sort of waited for the feeling to pass. I didn't do anything to get
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
It was just the next day I was like, oh yeah, that happened. And then just, I don't know, just time passed and that was it. And that was that. I didn't sort of dwell on it for too long. You can't, because other stuff happens, doesn't it? You get other jobs in. There's always something else to do. You can't just sit there wallowing, thinking,
A mope.
yeah, mope. Ugh, they don't want on hold. I mean, who does?
Yeah, it is. It's time. Firstly, trying to look at I try. It doesn't always work. Well, maybe it does work. I don't know, but I try and look at it rationally in terms, like I said, like the shoots that have gone well, like the happy clients. But it is just time. It is just knowing that that's going to annoy me for a bit. But there is a good reason why that would be, because it's your livelihood. And if someone is criticizing a way you do that, especially with the creative industry where you put some part of yourself in it, it's going to hurt a lot. And I don't think that gets easier. And I think that maybe the trick is not 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 taking it too much on board if it's a one-off, or maybe a couple of times a year, because there's just no way that you're going to knock it out the park every single time. But if it is slightly more common, well, then maybe that's the time to be quite honest with yourself. You don't want to blow it out of proportion, but
Yeah.
also there's always something you can learn too.
Yeah, if that 9 out of 10 starts becoming 9 out of 10 bad ones, then you know it's time to reassess
And mope.
and mope. Well, no, just do better,
Just do your job better.
basically.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So, in summary, I don't think we answered the one. Oh, you said about the one like when do you know when you're ready? I
Well,
don't.
I don't think I think most of it is down to circumstance.
Mm,
Because if I've done sort of workshops with young people before, and a lot of questions come up around this, and they say, "Oh, you know, when do I start?" And it's impossible to answer that because everybody's circumstance is different. Now, if you're living at home and you're not paying any bills and you've basically got a free roll, well, then why not get started
mm,
soon? Because you fail early, and that's great.
mm,
If um, if you've got rent or mortgage to pay and bills and people that are depending on you, well, it's not, you know, that piece of advice would be completely stupid because starting out is going to be lean, isn't it? So you need to have some kind of backup or continue to work part-time or have some money in the bank
mm.
that you can lean on. So it's like most things, isn't it? It's context.
Yeah, and work on the things that matter as well at the beginning.
Oh, go on.
So, like, I think there was probably a lot of things that I did to start with I didn't need at that time. So, I was convinced that I needed a website as soon as possible. Otherwise, I didn't feel like a business. I don't think that's true. I know people that have been running businesses for a few years solely using LinkedIn as their presence on the internet, and they do very well. And business cards as well. I thought I've got to get business cards. I wasn't going anywhere to give any business cards out. It was just one of those things where I thought, well, business people have business cards, and just things. Yeah, just prioritize. I think do the things that will get you to be better at what you do, and to get you work. Business cards, I didn't need those. They weren't going to get me work at the beginning.
I think that happens a lot with people with social media, though. People feel the need they have to be on social media
Mm,
and they have to keep a presence on social media. And I think for some people it works, and but other people it possibly doesn't, and that's fine. There's so many ways to market yourself, and there's so many ways to bring in work,
mm,
and there's only so many hours in a day. So I'd say, you know, if you're getting a lot of traction from social media and lots of leads and work, like great, keep on
mm,
doing that. But for other people, I think other people can find it very frustrating because they're putting all this time, um, and you know, engagement could be up, and likes and comments could be up, but if that doesn't translate to sales, well, sounds harsh, but what's the point?
What is the point? What a question to end on.
What is the point in all this?
Oh, good job I wasn't recording that.